We will be looking at the domain and range of a set of points. Domain. Domain is defined as the set of all possible input values, or x values, in which a valid output from a particular relation on a coordinate plane. It is the set of all real numbers for which a relation is mathematically defined. I generally think of domain as all possible x values. So that's the way I think of domain. Range. Range is defined as the set of all possible output values, which are basically the y's, which result from the domain of a particular relation on the coordinate plane. It is the set of all real number outputs at which a relationship is mathematically defined. I think of this as all possible y values. Now, all possible y values, more exactly, all calculated y values. So when I take a look at example number one, state the domain associated with the number line below. If I take a look at this number line below, I have to ask myself, since it's domain, well, the range doesn't really make much sense here, but I ask myself the domain, what are the possible x values? So I am just gonna think in my little cloud here. What I see is we have a -5, we have a 9, we have a -1, and we have a 4. So domain, we generally write in a very specific way. We signify it with a D, and I'm going to use set notation here. So I'm going to use my set brackets. There we are. There's a set bracket. A lot of people call these curly brackets, but they're actually called set brackets. And I simply put my x values here in order from left to right. -5, -1, 4, and 9. What information does this convey? This information conveys what are the possible x values, and there are 4 possible x values here. But it also conveys what are not possible x values. So for instance, in my set here, in my mathematical set, I don't have 2. So 2 cannot possibly be in my domain. Allow me to answer maybe a fundamental question. What is a set? Well, a set, I'm going to more casually denote it. A set is just a collection. So a set is just a number of items that go into these brackets, and it's called a set. So they can be items like how many shirts do you wear, and you would put those shirts or describe those shirts in a set. Or what are the kitchen appliances that are in your kitchen? You could list those, and I would know what's in your kitchen. But since we're in math class, we often describe sets using numbers. It can also be objects, though. So a set is just a collection. We're going to state the domain and the range associated with the scatter plot below. So right now, the domain. Range. Now, domain and range, domain has to deal with x, range has to deal with y. Some people are confused about this, and if you are ever confused, put it in alphabetical order. Domain, D occurs before R, X occurs before Y. So domain is the possible X values. Now, before I get too fancy on you, I am just going to set this up. There's my domain and there's my range. So I take a look at my domain. What are the possible x values? Well, I have an x value at 1. I have an x value at 2. I have an x value at 3, at 4, at 5, and at 6. So the easiest way to write it is like this. Whereas the range, I'm going to take it a little bit, it's the possible y values. So I ask myself, what are the possible y values? So what I'm going to do is I ask myself what are the possible y values, make sure I indicate them. Now I'm only drawing this picture to help me explain what's going on here. So every point here, what I see is we have -1, we have 0, 1, 2, 3, and then it goes all the way up to 6. So I have to write that down. So -1, comma 0, comma 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma 6. Domain and range are extraordinarily important, really fundamentally important. Later on in math courses, often domain and range are focused on because they imply the true nature of a graph or of a function. And graphs and functions are really what higher level math are largely based upon in grade 11 and 12. So if you want to try this, you can get the domain and range. Now remember, we're writing them in set notation, so I'm going to put nice curly set brackets. There we are. Here we are. A lot of people have a hard time drawing these brackets: forehead, nose, chin. All right. So if you want, you can press pause, try this out on your own, or you could follow my lead. What I'm able to see here is that my domain, the possible x values, are 1, 3, 4, and 6. My possible y values, a lot of people have a hard time seeing it, so just simply take every point, and there's my y value. There's my y value for the second point here. For this point, for these two upper points, I have a y value of that. So I've just circled it, and it's -2, 2, and 5. So that would be my range. Now notice that there are more items in this domain than in my range. Is that allowed? Yes. And notice that I actually have 2 points that have a y value of 5. Yeah, when I put it into set notation, when I put it into the set, I only have to mark down one value of 5.